Welcome to World Pulse Updates. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. Tonight, we examine a Supreme Court decision that's transforming police accountability in America. On May 16, 2025, the court's unanimous ruling in Barnes v. Felix ended years of legal division over how excessive force claims are judged. For decades, some courts focused only on the split second when force was used, ignoring the events leading up to it. The Supreme Court has now mandated a comprehensive review, requiring courts to consider the full story, not just the final moment. This ruling unifies the standard nationwide, ensuring that geography no longer determines justice. It compels police departments to rethink training, policies, and the meaning of accountability. For families and advocates, it opens new avenues for justice and affirms that context matters. Barnes v. Felix is more than a legal precedent. It's a turning point in the national conversation about policing. The story of Ashtian Barnes begins in Houston, Texas, in 2016, a city bustling with life but also marked by deep tensions between law enforcement and the communities they serve. On an ordinary night, what started as a routine traffic stop would soon spiral into a tragedy that would echo far beyond the city limits. Officer Roberto Felix Jr. pulled over Ashtian Barnes, a young African-American man, for a minor traffic violation. What should have been a simple encounter turned fatal in less than 2 minutes, forever altering the lives of everyone involved. Ashtian, visibly anxious, sat behind the wheel as Officer Felix approached. In a moment of panic, Barnes attempted to flee, starting his car in a desperate bid to escape the situation. The tension in those seconds was palpable, a split-second decision that would have irreversible consequences. As the car lurched forward, Officer Felix made a split-second choice of his own. He jumped under the door sill, clinging to the moving vehicle. In the chaos, Felix fired his weapon twice, striking Barnes and ending his life almost instantly. The entire encounter, from the initial stop to the fatal shots, lasted less than 2 minutes. The aftermath was devastating. Barnes's family was left shattered, mourning the loss of a son, brother, and friend. The community, already wary of police interactions, was plunged into grief and outrage, demanding answers and accountability for what they saw as a preventable tragedy. Determined to seek justice, Barnes's family filed a lawsuit. Their argument was clear. Officer Felix's own actions, jumping onto a moving car, had escalated the danger, and the entire sequence of events, not just the final seconds, should be scrutinized. They were joined by civil rights advocates who saw the case as emblematic of a broader pattern of police conduct. But when the case reached the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, the judges took a narrow view. They focused solely on the moment Officer Felix fired his weapon, ruling that he faced a credible threat at that instant. The court dismissed the case, refusing to consider whether Felix's earlier choices had created the danger in the first place. By ignoring the broader context, the court effectively shielded Officer Felix from any liability. This decision left many questioning whether justice had truly been served, and whether the law adequately protects citizens from excessive force. For the Barnes family, the ruling was a devastating blow. With no legal recourse left at the lower courts, they faced the painful reality that their loss might never be acknowledged in a court of law. Yet their fight was not over. The case was now poised to reach the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court, where it would challenge the very foundation of how courts judge police use of force, and potentially reshape the standards for accountability nationwide. The moment of threat rule, used by courts like the Fifth Circuit, told judges to ignore everything except the instant force was used. This snapshot approach meant officers could escape scrutiny for actions that escalated a situation. Civil rights groups argued it shielded officers from real accountability. Other circuits used a broader, totality of the circumstances standard, considering the entire encounter. The split meant justice depended on where a case was filed. The Barnes case challenged this narrow doctrine, demanding a more honest assessment of police conduct. Refusing to accept the Fifth Circuit's decision, Barnes's family petitioned the Supreme Court. Their argument, reasonableness under the Fourth Amendment, can't be judged in a vacuum. They highlighted the absurdity of rights changing by geography and called for a nationwide standard. The Supreme Court agreed to hear the case, drawing national attention and a flood of amicus briefs from all sides. During oral arguments, justices pressed both sides on how far back courts should look and how to balance accountability with the realities of police work. The court sought a clear rule that honored the Constitution and provided practical guidance. The stage was set for a landmark decision. On May 16, 2025, the Supreme Court issued a landmark 9-0 decision in favor of the Barnes estate, fundamentally altering how courts evaluate police use of force. In a rare show of complete unanimity, the justices rejected the long-standing moment of threat doctrine, which had previously allowed courts to focus only on the split second when an officer used force, often ignoring the events that led up to that moment. This ruling marks a pivotal shift in American legal history, signaling a new era for civil rights and police accountability. Writing for the court, Justice Elena Kagan emphasized that judges and juries must now consider the totality of the circumstances surrounding a police encounter, not just the final, most dangerous instant. Her opinion made clear that every action, every decision, and every escalation by officers leading up to the use of force must be weighed. This approach recognizes the complexity of real-life situations and ensures that justice is not reduced to a single frozen frame in time. Under this new standard, officers can no longer claim immunity if their own unreasonable actions contributed to escalating a situation. The court's decision sends a clear message. Law enforcement must be held accountable for the entirety of their conduct, not just their split-second decisions. This means that if officers provoke or intensify a confrontation, they can be held responsible for the consequences. The Supreme Court's ruling vacated the Fifth Circuit's previous decision, erasing years of conflicting standards across the country. For the first time, all federal courts must follow a single binding precedent when evaluating excessive force claims. This uniformity brings much-needed clarity to a legal landscape that was previously fragmented and confusing for both plaintiffs and law enforcement. Now, juries are empowered to hear the full story behind every police encounter. They must consider the officer's entire course of conduct, from the first interaction to the final outcome, before reaching a verdict. This ensures that justice is based on a comprehensive understanding of the facts, rather than a narrow focus on a single moment. While the decision does not guarantee that every plaintiff will win their case, it does guarantee a more transparent and equitable process. Plaintiffs now have a fairer opportunity to present evidence of how an officer's actions unfolded over time, and courts are required to examine the full context before making a judgment. The court's unanimous decision sends a powerful signal to the nation. A complete and honest view of police encounters is now a core constitutional principle. The justices' unity underscores the importance of fairness and transparency in our justice system, regardless of political or ideological differences. Barnes v. Felix did not invent a new constitutional right. Instead, it clarified and reinforced the fundamental right to be free from unreasonable seizures, as protected by the Fourth Amendment. The court made it clear that this right must be judged by looking at the whole context of an encounter, not just its most dangerous moment. With this decision, the era of fragmented justice in excessive force cases has come to an end. The Supreme Court has set a new standard, one that promises greater accountability, transparency, and fairness for all Americans. Alongside the main ruling, Justice Kavanaugh's concurrence emphasized the dangers officers face, especially during traffic stops. He cautioned lower courts not to second-guess officers with hindsight, reminding them to weigh the real risks police encounter. The concurrence urged courts to balance accountability with the realities of policing. It warned against holding officers to a standard of perfection. While the new standard broadens scrutiny, it must include the officer's perspective and the pressures of the moment. The guidance ensures accountability is real, but grounded in the complexities of law enforcement. The ruling forces immediate changes in police training and policy nationwide. Departments must now train officers to consider their conduct throughout an encounter, not just the final act. De-escalation and scenario-based training will become central. Officers must document the full context of incidents, including de-escalation efforts and tactical decisions. Internal affairs and oversight boards must review the entire event, not just the outcome. This holistic approach encourages prevention, not just justification of force. Departments face new pressure to identify and correct problematic behaviors early. The ruling fosters a culture of continuous improvement and accountability. The Barnes decision is expected to increase excessive force lawsuits and legal costs for cities. Plaintiffs can now present the full story, making early dismissal harder for municipalities. More cases will reach trial, raising litigation costs and insurance premiums. Insurers may become more selective, pressuring cities to reform police practices. City leaders will face demands for stronger oversight, better training, and stricter use of force policies. Civilian review boards may gain new authority. The ruling arms reform advocates with a powerful legal tool. Local politics and police oversight will feel the impact for years to come. Legal experts across the country are calling Barnes v. Felix a landmark decision, a major step toward greater transparency and fairness in our justice system. This case has sparked important conversations among judges, attorneys, and community leaders about how the law should adapt to better serve everyone, not just a select few. By requiring courts to consider the full context of each case, the ruling helps build public trust and ensures that the stories told in courtrooms are more honest and complete. It encourages judges and juries to look beyond surface details and understand the real-life circumstances that shape every encounter between citizens and law enforcement. While this decision doesn't guarantee that every lawsuit will succeed, it does widen the path to justice for those who have been wronged. It opens the courthouse doors a little wider, giving more people a fair chance to have their voices heard and their experiences validated. The impact of Barnes versus Felix will ripple through police training programs, city policies, and future court cases. Departments will need to rethink how they prepare officers for real-world situations. And city leaders will be challenged to update policies to reflect these new standards. The decision calls on law enforcement agencies to embrace de-escalation, transparency, and accountability at every level. City officials are now tasked with providing the oversight and resources needed to support these changes, ensuring that reforms are not just promises, but realities. At the same time, citizens have a vital role to play. Staying informed, attending community meetings, and participating in public discussions are all essential to keeping the momentum for justice alive. The ongoing conversation about justice, fairness, and accountability needs every voice. Barnes v. Felix reminds us that justice is not a destination, but a continuous journey. Each step forward is built on the efforts of those who came before, and the path ahead will be shaped by our collective actions and choices. The promise of the Constitution is not self-fulfilling. It depends on each generation's commitment to fairness, equality, and the rule of law. Teaching these values to our children and upholding them in our communities is how we honor that promise. True accountability is not about punishment or blame. It's about building trust and legitimacy in policing. When officers and institutions are held to high standards, everyone benefits from a safer, more just society. The path forward demands that we balance public safety with the protection of individual rights. Only by working together, law enforcement, city leaders, and citizens, can we make equal justice a lived reality for all and ensure that the ideals of fairness and accountability endure for generations to come.